Yeah, girl. From the
So
time
messy, and
you
I'm
knew
messy. Oh my
Trey,
God.
yeah, he's tripled in size.
I
It's hard to
know.
believe.
Hey, Joe. I know, it really is. I think it's crazy to think about. It's funny because I messaged this to our team and I was like, hey, you guys make sure to try log on. And I told Kelly, I was like, she has a big kid going to college. That's not even possible.
I know. It's been too long, and time really does not stand still. It does not stand. People are like, oh, no, not in my case. I look back and I tell you what, this year has been a gift that I had no idea, for all the ups and downs and the sadness and all the things that it brought so many of us. I'm like, I cannot believe the gift of having my son take a gap year. Now he's going to Florida. So, for the next 4 years, I'll barely see my son, but I got an entire year with him that was just sort of bonus year where he's, grown and trying to figure it out and comes to me for advice. And I tell you what, brings me to tears how grateful I am, because I just think, well, I mean, life would have just gone on, right? He would have just gone and I would have missed out, and who knows, but I got so many great opportunities with him. It's been cool.
That's good.
Yeah. He was supposed to go to Morehouse in Atlanta, but he just decided a week ago that he's going to Florida Atlantic. Does anybody, y'all know where that, in Boca Raton?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Boca's a
Just, I think we can all go volunteer to speak to his classes, be there for Parents Weekend. You just let us know when you need us.
I will be making assignments. And I will not tell him that there are secret operatives on campus watching him. It's going to be something.
Gang, does anyone else have any exciting personal or professional announcements to share with the group?
Nope. The sun is out. That's the big news for today.
Yeah. Is anyone opening any positions in their organizations, or know of anyone looking for good referrals for talent? All right. Well, quiet start to the day, but all good. We're just 3 minutes into it, so why don't we just hang out for maybe 2 more minutes, and then Jess will let you get started. And I know we've still got some folks chiming in here. Hey, Alyssa, welcome. So one of the perks that we have, mentioned in emails of membership is that for those of you who are our members, thank you very much. If you cannot attend an event and want to allow someone the opportunity to use your ticket in your place, always just shoot us a note, and we're happy to, pop someone else in your place. That way you still get the benefit of the event. And of course, we'll record things and send them to you. Alyssa is actually joining us today. She's with the Restaurant and Lodging Association because a friend of hers, I think, who was it? Mindy Wharton is with Wildlife Resources, can't attend, and said, hey, I'd love for Alyssa to attend to my place. So I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that is a perk that we added last year that you all can take advantage of. And speaking of upcoming events, I wanted to, share with everyone that our sort of initial brainstorm for the year for the PR Society is that we're going to continue on virtual for the next little bit here, but that maybe, fingers crossed, by June or July, we're able to embrace a hybrid model where we start having small gatherings in person, but we still make it available via Zoom for anyone who doesn't feel comfortable coming out, or, is still managing, working from home and kids and things like that. So we're going to try and be as adaptable to everyone's different needs as possible. But maybe by the summer, we'll all be able to raise a glass in person together. And we'll, of course, continue a mix of lunch, breakfast, and after-hour events. We are chatting with a couple of people who are interested in coming on as our open awards chair position on the board. And so as soon as we have that person in place, we will announce our dates for this year and, start collecting submissions of all of your good work that needs to be celebrated. And maybe come fall, we'll be able to have an in-person celebration again. Fingers crossed.
Love it.
All right. Well, with that said, Jess, I am going to let you take over with the screen and do what you do, girl.
All right, thank you. Like I said a second ago, I feel like there's so many of you that I know or have done business with in the past, or in Kara's case was my boss, which is awesome. Just really cool to see the community connected in this way through this association. So really, or through the society, PR society. So I'm glad to be invited. Thank you for the invitation to be with you today. And I see Lauren on the call. Yeah, just this is cool. So let's just, why don't we decide right now that this is going to be informal? Can we do that? I have slides and I'm going to talk you through some stuff. Hey girl, I see her in the chat. But let's just pretend we're in the living room and we're just sitting around talking about whatever we're going to talk about today. I've got 5 sort of lessons, things that I've been thinking about or that I have been talking about. Some are new, some are not, over the last few months as I've been navigating this crazy time. And I think about your professions and the work that you're doing and how you're constantly trying to put the best foot forward and market and position and be strategic, right? So that the world sees the best of all the things that you're trying to put out there. And I think that's really admirable. I also think that it can be exhausting. So for you personally, and I want to acknowledge that. I sort of want to come into this space knowing that you probably have a lot going on and that the fact that you gave an hour even today is likely a lot, but we're going to enjoy our time together, I hope, and you'll hear me talk, but I would love if there's an opportunity to jump in chat. There will be at least 1 or 2 of those. Please do, because it'll just help us all level set and see where how we're showing up today. Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump into my screen. This is hilarious. I'm on my son's laptop because my computer died this morning. I had to do a podcast just before this and was like scrambling for sound. And then we made this. So this will be my first time on his laptop sharing. So let's all cross our fingers. Looks good so far. Can y'all see? Come on, Trey. My son's name is Trey. Look at him. This is great. All right. So here's my slides. I hope y'all can still see me over in the corner. I can see at least 4 of you, which is awesome. Again, what we're going to talk about today, or at least the theme that Lisa and I talked about, was giving you 5 tips, 5 nuggets to get more out of work and life post-pandemic. Frankly, let's be honest. What we're going to be doing post-pandemic isn't much different than what we should be doing now, but we don't have as much maybe opportunity to amplify this good stuff because we're sort of in the same colleague space and the same family space. And so this is really my thoughts on how to elevate the game a little bit once we get out of our routine, when you guys are back in the shuffle. All right, so let's see here if I can advance. That would be good. All right, so who am I? I'm Jes Averhart, the CEO now of Jes & Co. As of July of 2020, I decided to quit my job that was very stable and that I loved a great deal to start my company. So in the middle of a pandemic, I decided to just, figure this all out. It's been wonderful and I've learned a ton of lessons. And so some of those you'll see come through in my talk today. I'm also a storyteller. I love bringing things to life, like you all basically are all storytellers. Adventurer, which you're going to see here shortly, and an author in 2021. So in the next couple of months, I'll be releasing 2 books, which is exciting. So I can add that to my resume. But who am I really, right? Like the Instagram stuff is cool, but the truth of the matter is I love pie. I love British crime shows. I'm really into Midsummer Murders. I've seen them all 3 times. And, I have a great girl tribe that keeps me grounded, that reminds me of my areas of growth and also tells me that I'm awesome, right? So I have a great girl tribe that has kept me grounded. And then Kara mentioned my son. If some of you came on late, he's at the bottom there. Kara knew my son when he looked like that over to the left when I was holding his hand. When I was working for her, he was a little guy. And he is now 18. And he is going to Florida Atlantic in the summer. So a lot of time has passed, but that's really who I am. I guess if you take the Instagram stuff off, like I I'm from the Midwest. I'm from a small town of about 200 people, 281 people, I think was the latest. Really little, just south of Toledo, north of Columbus. I'm a fourth generation entrepreneur. So risk taking is in my blood, entrepreneurship, selling, marketing, PR. It's kind of how we made a living. And so I've been doing this work since I was 6 years old, really, promotion and thinking about business and growing business for a long time. And so I'm excited to now take all that I've learned and bring it into Jes & Co. All right. So I'd love to hear, we've been in this thing for about 11 months, and I don't know if you've had some time to do some self-reflection, but in the chat, I'd love to just briefly hear, what have you learned about yourself in the last 11 months? Not about the world. What have you learned about yourself in the last 11 months? I've got one that I am a little surprised by that I learned about me. Yeah, that you're stronger than you thought you were. Yeah, if I were to write in the chat, how much I value, yeah, that's good. I thought I was an extrovert. Turns out I'm very comfortable being in this space, right? I'm very comfortable being productive and highly motivated in a space like this. But I also realize that I do miss the energy that I get from people. So I have so much more gratitude for being around people and even being on Zooms, frankly. I love this because it's like new people, new faces, new chat comments. I love it. Patience. Turns out I don't actually enjoy being out and on the go all the time. Yep. Isn't that funny? We've been on the road. That's the thing. I remember not getting in my car in the morning and running around all day, coming home at like 6 or 7 at night, exhausted. And it really isn't all that exciting. It's really not. It's not the jam, right? Yeah. Yeah. I love outside more than I ever knew. Certainly on a day like today. I'm super grateful about today. Right before I jumped on this call with you all, I stood out. I just like walked out. I'm downtown Durham, if you can see, kind of right in the middle of the tobacco district. And I just stood out in the driveway like this to get some sun to charge up. You were on the go. That's good. I love it. Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to do this is, one, I don't know that we take enough time to reflect on these moments. Like this is a world-class moment that we have found ourselves in as humans. It's not something that's like, oh, well, it's a blip and we keep it moving. Like forever we will be changed. We are living through a moment where we will forever be changed. Generations to come will be forever changed just by these last 11 months and however long it lasts. Our patterns are different. Our needs are different as humans. Our requirements of each other are different. And so when we think about post-pandemic, everybody's like new normal and all that stuff. I think we will be surprised at the connected need that we have for each other. And I think that as in your industry, you'll be providing way more emotional content, way more connective tissue content than maybe ever before. So here's what I want to share with you. These are my 5, and I call them my differential value proposition. And again, y'all, let's not underestimate the power that each of us have to make a difference in every human that we touch from now until forevermore, because our needs are higher, they're amplified. And we have to get really clear on what your differential value proposition, what makes Kara different than me, different than Lisa, different than Lauren, right? We bring something different to the table. And if you can't identify it or know it, the world loses out, right? People will lose out. So this is my opportunity really to kind of drive this home for us today. So if you don't think about anything else, at the end of this, maybe take some time this weekend, light a candle, make some hot cocoa, brew some tea, and get really thoughtful and introspective about what is my differential value proposition for the world and for my business. So here's my first of my 5. Have the courage to keep it real. Now, it's one of the things that I'm really good at. I just don't care that much what everybody thinks. So it helps me because I just don't care that much. I love people and I don't harm people in my life, but I also am pretty comfortable in my skin. And so I have the courage to keep it real. And what I found is people love it because they're like, well, good. Now I can tell you all my junk, right? Because now we have a shared trust. So have the courage to keep it real. Is the quote that I want to share with you. Life shrinks or expands in the proportion with one's courage. And I don't think we often apply courage to authenticity, which is an overused term, but it is, I think, one of the bravest things we can do is show our true selves in spaces, in rooms, in meetings where it is expected for us to keep it PC. So as soon as you break that norm, people are like, whoa, it's almost like a spell is broken. So having the courage to be authentically you is a huge value proposition for me. It's one of my differential value props. And here's just a little bit of a, oops, again, sorry, I'm working with my son's stuff here. So we're getting there. This is now for you thinking industry wide. And I know you guys know this because it's your business to know it, but I also want us to think about it in terms of the human side. A study was done just recently, I think this was 2019, around the authenticity gap. And, this will come as no surprise, but 75% of nearly 12,000 consumers surveyed across 14 markets, blah, 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 say that brands across the board and companies across the board have a credibility problem. So 3 out of 4 people, consumers, can look at pretty much any brand on the under the tent, the big brands, and they're just like, yeah, nah, it's not, I don't believe it. I don't trust it. I don't believe it. But they say the same consumers they surveyed said that 9 out of 10 were willing to take action to reward a brand for its authenticity. And now that's something. If I knew that 9 out of 10 of those same people would reward me if I was just keeping it real, don't you think more people would do that? And why don't we? Why don't we? Because I think we've bought into this idea that there is such a formula to the process to trigger all the endorphins in a consumer's mind to get them to buy. But the truth is that more consumers are starting here with their heart. They're leaning in with how they feel about you. And if you're being honest with them. So that's a huge statistic that I think if anybody actually paid attention to it would change the way we market and we talk to audiences. It's the same, I think, applies to us as humans, right? And who we engage in. If you're the brand, probably better if we're authentic as a person, as humans. 52% of those people would recommend the brand. So half of those same people would recommend it. Just about half would pledge loyalty. And my marketers out there, y'all know that that's earth-shattering to actually pledge loyalty to Crest over Colgate. Like nobody does that anymore. People are buying for price, right? But if it was just like, but I trust them and I believe them, I'm always going to buy Crest. I mean, that is huge. And then 20% would be prepared to spend money on brands that provided their authenticity. So this authenticity gap with those 12,000 consumers is easily fixable if you just keep it real. So I wanted to throw these guys up here because I always think about these 2 brands, and whatever you think about them, they do a great job of storytelling. And in my case, I look at Disney. There's something about the Disney brand that has like for whatever reason, Americans and folks across the world, but Americans will spend thousands of dollars, stand in the hot sun, drag their kids through an amusement park, spend more money, stand in line for this dream, right? How do they do that? How do you convince a family to go through these gymnastics that frankly are not they're not feasible and they're not that fun because they have convinced us that the American dream, like this is a part of the journey of being in the American dream. And they've convinced us through their storytelling, right? And we believe it because it feels authentic. It feels authentic. You got Mickey holding Disney's hand, right? You got all the stories. There's something about a beautiful story that connects with people that will make them spend the dollars. And it's not like they're telling us to do it. They're showing us how to do it. Nike the same way. I think Nike does it even better because they apply these lovely images that I can see my daughter, my neighbor, my whatever, me when I was a kid. This is me, right? And so there's something about that piece of authenticity. So when I look at these brands, I'm convinced that these two especially have figured out how to turn up the knob. And I'm sure they're spending millions of dollars on it, but they've turned on the knob on the authenticity side and not just the sales conventional side. All right, the next one that I have learned and I've written about recently is the say-do ratio. This one is really important, y'all, for me when I think about the top 5 nuggets. When we get out of here, and this feeds back into authenticity, we will be more harshly judged on, do we do what we say we're going to do? Do you do what you say you're going to do? From as small of a moment as hey, let's do lunch. We should do lunch. And then we never call that person. Or, you know what I mean? We've all done this, right? Am I the only? I always do that. I don't try. That's the one thing that I've stopped doing. Like if I say I'm going to do it now, I do it because I'm talking about this so much. All the way to being a great husband, wife, spouse, partner in your family relationship, to running your company with integrity. Do you do what you say you're going to do? Are you a dependable colleague? Do you follow through? Or is it easier to do the say part because it feels good in the moment and not the do part because you actually have to put it all in practice? So the say-do ratio is big because it affects your credibility. That's the key. If your ratio is low, meaning you say a lot, you don't do it. If your say-do ratio is low, your credibility goes down. The interest in other people collaborating with you goes way down. And then people don't trust you. And that means family, friends, colleagues. If your say-do ratio is high, you probably say things about your friends like, I don't know what it is about her. I just like that. Something about her. Like I can trust her. I can call her. Every time I talk to him, he's right away, making that introduction, right? Something about our response time around say-do ratio elevates us with each other, doesn't it? And it connects us in a deeper way. So my challenge to you is to keep a high say-do ratio. And for me, that is going to be my differential value prop, because I know that people don't do this and they don't value it. But I also know that when it happens, it's almost like a miracle. Like, wow, she actually did make that intro. Or, oh my gosh, she linked in with me right away. It sets you apart. Okay, know your crystal balls. This is the third one. And I got this from a friend who some of you may know. You all are probably looking over to the far right, but we're not talking about him. We're talking about her. Cynthia Marshall, who is the general manager now of the Dallas Mavericks, used to be the president of AT&T in North and South Carolina. Then she moved to Texas and became the highest ranking African-American and executive for the company for several years. And then she retired. She got out of the game. And she was invited back. Does anybody know what happened at the Dallas Mavericks? You can write it in the chat. Does anybody know what happened that brought her back into the game? I'm looking into my chat, see if I can see. Okay. Anybody? Well, it was right around the Me Too movement. And the Dallas Mavericks had a little bit of a problem. They were highly prejudiced and highly they didn't understand sexism. And so there we had a little sexism issue going on in the back office. Okay. And Mark Cuban is the owner. That's your guy over to the right. He's the owner, and he was like, clearly under my leadership, I have allowed sexism and issues around sexism to run rampant in my organization. So I can't fix the problem because it happened under my leadership. So he invited Cynthia Marshall to come out of retirement. She was golfing. She was living the dream, to come out and fix his problem for him. And it's fascinating. Within 9 months, she committed to a 9-month turnaround. And she will tell the story, but she committed to a 9-month turnaround. Now the Dallas Mavericks are a model in the NBA for workforce relationships, and they have a high ethical and value standard around women in the workplace. Now, after 9 months, she turned the organization around, and other organizations are now following her lead. So Cynthia is a highly qualified individual. She's a major executive. And I had an opportunity to ask her a couple of years ago, like how this like work-life balance. And this is something that she said to me that I've not forgotten. She said, let me get to my screen here. She said, Jessica, you have to continue to prioritize, because as you become more successful, and this I'm talking to you all, as you become more successful, your priorities get shady. You think your success is driven on these priorities that have driven your success. It becomes a really vicious cycle. And she said, you have to be very, very careful to know the difference between the crystal balls in your life and the rubber balls. She said, rubber balls are cheap, they're small, they're replaceable, and they're distracting. They run all over the place, right? You throw it, then you're not trying to find it, and you don't value them. And she said, you've got to identify what are the crystal balls in your life. If you go back to the first 2 slides of mine, or the third slide actually, where it had my son, there is no question. Anybody who asks you about me, they'll be like, Jess talks about her son all the time. I do talk about my son all the time, because he is the crystal ball in my life. I have others, friendships, right? My business is a crystal ball. I'm careful with it. I want to make sure that it's stewarded well. But at the end of the day, nothing shines, nothing is more precious, nothing is more priceless than my relationship with my son. I do everything around him and for him. So knowing that then helps me prioritize. And that's what Cynthia did. She said she went to DC one year, and she was supposed to be speaking to some senators. Like she had to speak before Congress, and had a bunch of meetings with congressmen around that time. And her son's swim meet got rescheduled. And she told me, because I'm very clear about my crystal balls, I made a commitment to myself that I would never miss any of my children's firsts. Okay, so she's a busy executive. She can't make everything. But she said, I would never compromise missing a first. It was his first swim meet. So she got on a plane. She left DC. She went back to Texas, watched his swim meet, and then flew back to DC. And the congressmen were like saying to her, wait a minute, what are you doing? She missed meetings. And they were like, I've got to go. My son is crystal ball, right? I got to go. And they were like, but it's just a swim meet. And like looking at her like, you are an executive at AT&T, and we were talking about major legislation here. And she's like, yeah, well, at the end of the day, nothing's more important. And so they rescheduled meetings with her when she was available the next day, or the 2 days. I think she said it took 2 days to get them all back in. But the idea that she modeled that, not just said it, but like took to task congressmen around her crystal ball is so incredible. So because she led that way, I can't get it out of my mind that if this woman can leave DC to go see her sons first, I can prioritize my child along the way. And so you might know what your crystal balls are. I would just ask, are you living, is your say-do matching up? Okay, and it's going to be very important post-pandemic that we keep those things in mind, because we're all going to be hustling to try to make up for lost time, or, we're going to be so excited to be together. Let's not forget what's most important. Okay, this is another one. This is a little bit silly, but today, like I said, my real laptop is sitting right here on the couch. And so I was a little frantic. I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to call in? How am I going to do these slides? The whole thing. And I'm like, girl, you in your slides, you tell people to calm down. So I was like, okay, bring it down. What are we doing? What's the next? This is something I always say to myself. What's the next right thing? You have another laptop. Your son is out of town. His Mac is probably in his room. Found it. What's your password? Right? We did the whole thing. Got it. So calming down is another key, I think, tip for us in a pandemic, in a post-pandemic world, because we are going to want to be spun up by media, spun up by each other, because we want to get and go. We want to solve for our clients. I really believe that there's this moment where there has to be one rational person in the room. And I would challenge you to be that person, because it's incredibly easy to follow the flow of the energy. And so my energy was like, how? And I was like, no, what's the next right thing? Bring it in. And I solved for it within like 12 minutes. It wasn't even a big deal. And my buddy, who looks a little scary here, but because of this picture, is actually fairly cool, but he's out of Philly. He's a music producer, works with Questlove. I tend to, where I live, when there's artists in town, they come to this building, and sometimes I'm like the green room for these people. And so I met him because he was like hanging out in my living room and, having drinks or whatever, so he could go perform. And he said to me, he had something that was going crazy on his phone. He was investing in a water company, and things were like going kind of left. And he was in Durham and trying to get ready for his show. And so he told me, kind of off the cuff, he wasn't really talking to me. He just said, you know what? Sometimes you get a runner in your pantyhose. And I was like, you know what? That's a real, I mean, he's getting ready to invest millions of dollars in a water company. And he knew he had to be out there with Quest, because Quest was DJing and he was the hype man. And he just looked at me kind of like, these folks, he's a vegan too. So he also practices calmness and meditation all the time. He's like, you know what? Sometimes you get a runner in your pantyhose. And I was like, if I could just remember this. So the pandemic, I'm not trying to downplay this, because it is one of the greatest, shifts in our lives that we will ever see. But we also have to take a step back and have some perspective. We still add value. We can't put our lives on hold, right? We've got to keep moving forward. And sometimes we have a little runner in our pantyhose. Last March, everything shut down. Doesn't mean our lives shut down. I mean, Lisa's getting engaged over here. We got folks, you know what I mean? It's a whole thing. Life goes on. Let's not blow things out of proportion, because again, who's the calm, steady hand in the room? When things start to pick back up, people will be looking for you to be that calm in the center of the storm. And then last but not least, know your comfort cliff. And I think some of you have heard me talk about this. This is kind of my staple. I mentioned that I last year quit my job and started a company. And so I jumped, I was prepared, I had a plan and all the things. By the end of the year, I was feeling a little like, I kind of got it. You know, when you get it, I don't know if whoever has a tattoo, but I have a couple. And so when I got my first tattoo, you want it, for those of you who have one, you kind of want another one. And then you get another one, and then at some point you're just like, you got to stop. I mean, you're not an NBA player, like cut it out. So I have 3, but there's something about jumping off a comfort cliff the first time that makes you want to do it again. And so I jumped off my comfort cliff in July. And by December, I was feeling this urge to make another big statement and jump again, because I felt like the jump was the thrill, like that's the journey. And I was ready to do it again. And so as I think about the work that you all are doing, there's going to be moments. And so you're going to be asking me, what is the comfort cliff? Literally think about yourself on the edge of a cliff, like a big high cliff. You're at the edge. And what's in front of you are all these like incredible, exciting possibilities. Like, the possibilities exist, but you have to put the energy and the action behind it to get to the next cliff or get to the next level or to fly, whatever it is. But there's that fear that if you jump, you're literally going to splat like Roadrunner, right? But I believe in myself, my talents, my gifts, my skills, my resources, my friends, my family, enough to know that that's probably not going to happen, that I have a soft landing. So why not? Why don't we do it? And the reason we don't do it is because if we look, imagine yourself on this cliff, we look behind us and we see all the people who are safely tucked away on the fat part of the cliff. They can't see over, right? They got up there, but they're not going to go to the edge. We look at them and say, I mean, you know, that's not so bad. That stuff I know everything about that. It's very comfortable. It's familiar. I'm with the crowd. I got people with me. It's really hard to be the one that steps away from the edge, from that group, and gets close to the edge. It's really, really hard to do it. But the people who do it are, in many cases, the most highly rewarded, most fulfilled, they have the most energy. They're giving life to other people because they've taken a step that most people will never take. And so know what your comfort cliff is. And again, this is the time to do it while we're all kind of a little bit more snug in our homes. Do you want to open a bookstore in Spain? Do you want to, open up a PR firm now and serve, a global audience? Do you want to move to the West Coast? Do you want to go for that promotion? What are you trying? Do you want to get married? Do you want to have whatever it is, right? What is the cliff for you? And what's holding you back? Identify it and decide your risk reward factor. Wouldn't it be amazing? What are the possibilities? What if you jumped? What if you jumped? What if your company jumped? What if your department jumped? What if you personally jumped? What would your life maybe be like? And I get excited about the what ifs. Some people get scared to death about it. Stuff doesn't scare me, but I get that you have to think it through. But what if we got one shot at this on this planet? One shot. We are here for a finite amount of time. So figure out what your cliff is, get to the edge, and then jump. Now, I'll show you what I'm doing. So here's the quote that is driving my next jump. I'm going to show you what it is in a second. The quote is, I've gone ahead despite the pounding in my heart. This says, turn back, turn back, turn back. And the reason I can go ahead is because I did it in July. I know it because I did it once and I'm ready to do it again. And so some of you know this, some of you don't. I'm getting ready to jump in a Volkswagen bus, which I have not. I've procured one, but I'm getting ready to get another one. I'm getting ready to jump in a Volkswagen bus and take a 12-city tour across 3 months to interview women around their reinvention story, how they're navigating the pandemic, reviving my podcast that I piloted last year. And I don't even know how to drive a stick. So I got to learn how to drive a stick. I got to get myself in a Volkswagen that usually breaks down. So we got to make sure that's together. Raise all this money. And y'all, I'm going to do this in July. I'm leaving in July after my son goes to college. And so I have about 90 days to figure this thing out, but I'm jumping. I'm just going to do it because why not? So if I can do this, I just feel like, particularly professionals in your space, because you have such vision, you're visionaries in many ways. Like you think for other people and you think on behalf of your constituents. What is the big idea? What's the big idea you want for you? What's the big idea you want for your company, your organization? And why not make this the year that sets you apart, your differential value proposition that sets you apart from everyone else? That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And because you all are in the triangle, you'll set the triangle apart because your big ideas will be so amazing, incredible. All right. So the question I have for you are, what's your 5? You can have 3. What are your 5, 3 to 5 differential value props? What's your differential value proposition? What sets you apart as a human? The best way, I'm going to give you a tip. The best way to learn that and if you do this, I'm going to give you so much credit. My folks who go through my little coaching stuff, they do this and they're like, it was the scariest exercise I've ever done and the most rewarding. And what it is you text 5 people and you ask them what your greatest strengths are and your greatest areas of growth. And when they come back with your greatest strengths, you'll have better insight on your differential value proposition. The hardest part of that exercise is hitting send. The most rewarding part of that exercise is getting the inbox, getting the messages back. That is a small example of jumping off a cliff, is to ask other people what your greatest strengths and your greatest areas of growth. And over your cup of tea this weekend, while you're sitting with a candle lit, looking out at this beautiful day, write down your 5 differential value propositions. How are you going to invest more in yourself and more in your organization over the next couple of months? And look at that every day and create small milestones that you're feeding it, sharpening that value prop, sharpen yourself so that you can give the best to the world, because we need it. We need you. Fortune favors the brave. Don't be afraid to jump. That's all I got. And there's me. It's all my curly hair. This is my COVID. That was my COVID curly. And this is my COVID long. I mean, my hair's never been this long in its life. So yeah, you're seeing COVID in action. All right, I'm going to stop share so we can get back together. Look at that, Lisa, 1241. I was right on time, girl. What? Okay.
I never doubted you for a moment, friend.
Thanks. Thanks, friend. Appreciate your vote of confidence.
With that said, do you want to take some Q&A from the
Yeah,
audience?
absolutely. Yeah. If there's or just thoughts, comments, what resonated. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, y'all feel free to unmute or chat in, whatever's most convenient for you.
Can I say a couple things?
Please go for it.
Okay, so I have been, if you don't know Melanie Spring, get to know her. She's amazing. She does just human training, like how to talk to humans, how to market to humans, branding, all that stuff. Anyway, she's in this, she's developed this Speak with Confidence 90-day challenge thing. And so I'm part of this workshop. And one of the questions, going back to what Jes was saying about asking the people you know what your strengths are and how you've grown over the last year. One of the questions she had for us was ask the people we know what 5 words they would say about you. And I will tell you, when I went through that exercise, it was point on. Like, I really feel like the value propositions that I currently have are on point with what people are seeing and what they're getting from me, the inspiration they get from me. And to do that exercise, you're right. Hit the send button and you're like, oh gosh, am I going to get anything that's negative that comes back? And I think I got like maybe 1 word, but I didn't take it as a negative. I took it as a learning tool instead. Yeah. But most of the things that came back were exactly the person that I've been trying to be. And it felt really good to see that that's the inspiration that I've given to the people that are around me, both personal, like super close personal friends, and even the ones that aren't. So it's a cool exercise that I highly recommend you doing it from Jes's perspective, but even from the other too, because it does help you see where you could go and how you can contribute to this world. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
I really appreciate that, Lisa. What Lisa is saying is so important, because what she discovered through that process is really important, that she was aligned. There's something about alignment. It's one thing to know how you think you present to the world. It's another thing to see how the world sees you. And you want to be closely aligned there. And if you're not closely aligned, then that delta, right? There's my girls, my delta, but that delta is the work. Right? That's the work. And so you're trying to get aligned with yourself and the way that the world sees you. I think that that's important to be congruent, because otherwise that's when people say they don't trust you. You sound like a salesman. Like, that stuff comes from incongruency and misalignment. So just figure it out. You don't have to be the most amazing person in the planet. Just be one that's authentically you. That goes a long way, right? We're not all the same. So that's really helpful, Lisa, because that's the key, right? Is the alignment piece. What people see you as and what you think you are showing up as might not always be the same. Anybody else have thoughts about this? No thoughts. Y'all are like,
Does anyone
no, what
wanna
they're
open
saying is we got
themselves up
15 minutes to go out in
for-
the sun.
Does anyone
I
want to
can
be
say
a
something.
guinea pig and open themselves up for RPRS 5 things?
Whoa. No.
Somebody
But
said,
I did have a thought.
whoa.
I did have a thought. One thing that really resonated with me was one of the first things that you said that you started off the presentation with was just the courage to keep it real. And
Yeah.
I think that part is so hard to do within the industry and with the way that society is going, the trends that are happening, the way that things are always changing, always evolving. You know, not only, you know, your internal relationships with your coworkers or with folks in your department, but also like trying to stay authentic with your messaging and your branding and how you're presenting, you know, to the different audiences that you're in front of. You know, it's challenging. It's a good challenging because you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, but it's just becoming more and more difficult, you know, especially in our industry where we're having to always kind of put ourselves forward as far as being those relationship builders. And then from our company standpoint, being the messenger to the rest of the world about how we are, what we do, how we do it better, you know, that type of thing. So what are some tips that you have, Jess, on keeping it real, both for us as coworkers, employees, and then also just from a branding standpoint?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Well, you heard me say at the beginning that I'm comfortable, like you got to keep it real. And I said, I'm comfortable because I don't care what you think. and I meant that it was kind of a like a slappy kind of comment. I could have said it a million different ways. Like, it doesn't bother me what kind of feedback, blah, blah. I don't care what you think is important for me because it anchors me in my core values. So I am very anchored in my core values. I know exactly what makes me up. My core values help drive my decisions. So that's why I don't care as much, because I know that I'm pretty aligned here, right? And here. Which means that when I get criticism, I'm very objective. I've because I'm now 45. I have got a lot of thick skin and have been able to, I appreciate feedback. Whereas when you're younger, you're like, you think all feedback is bad feedback. I'm comfortable with feedback. I appreciate it. I will take it. And if it is right with my values, then I will adopt it. If it's not, and there have been times, I mean, I've been married 12 years, gotten a divorce. Trust me, I've lived real life. And there have been moments where two right things seem right. I have to pick the better of the right? It's not always right and wrong. It's like two good, right things. Which one's better? So one is getting really grounded in your core values so that when you are faced with those moments, you can go back to them and use that as your litmus test. And I mean, seriously, figure out your values, like go online. There's lots of core value exercises and determine your 5. I don't just mean it in theory. And the other thing is the risk in being a people pleaser, which is what you're kind of saying, because it's, like you're worried about being authentically you because you're trying to be what everybody else needs you to be in any given moment, is that you become watered down and then you don't have a message. So you have to be careful. Like some of the strongest brands, like these influencers, which I'm not a fan of. I could talk about that for days too. But there's something about them. They're very anchored in one thing. Like they're strong. They position themselves strongly in this kind of lane, right? They're not trying to be all things to all people. They're trying to be all things to all people who go to Fiji or whatever their thing is, right? There's something about taking the water out of, stop diluting ourselves. That resonates, I think, more with our friends, our family, our colleagues, and the messages that you're trying to get out there, and be ready for feedback. You're not gonna be the thing for everybody, and that's okay. That's okay. I always think you have to be able to, one thing I say to folks that I lead a team right now, and I'm always saying to them when we make our decisions, can you defend it? Is it defendable? If you can defend yourself all day long, because if I challenge you, you better not just be like, because I felt like it. I mean, what's your defense for it? And if it comes back to your core values, great. If it was a bottom line decision, fine. Was it the best decision? Maybe not, but at least you have a reason. So getting really clear, can you defend it? Is it right for the brand? Is it watered down? Right? Like we need to ask more questions. I have a good friend who's an engineer by trade, and he said that they were taught you have to ask why 5 times. Why this? Answer it. Then, well, why that? Why answer the why 5 times? Why? And that gets you to the meat of it. If you can, and we don't do that. We sort of are like, well, this is what we've always done. We're going to do it again. It worked for us last year. Let's just repackage it. Why? Right? Like, why? And maybe you'll come up with something new and innovative and creative and aligned with your mission values. Yeah, that's those are just off the top, some things.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Suggest some of those tests that you can do online. Is there one that you like or can offhand?
I actually have one. I'll send it
Okay.
to you, Lisa. She can send it to the group.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's easy too. It's a printable, or you can just do it on a computer. Core value. It's just a core value list. And I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. Like even personality tests, I love those. Those are tons of fun. But isn't it more interesting to ask 5 people what they think about you, and you sit and have some introspection about yourself versus somebody spitting out 10 pages of what they think your personality is? Yeah. So I'm going to send you a list, and then you can just do the exercise. Yeah. I'll do that today. What else? 8 minutes to get in the sunshine.
Just give us a little teaser on the books you have coming out this year. Where can we look for them? What are they about? Where can we buy them to support you?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, 2 things. The first book is coming out in the summer. I co-authored it with a woman who is the CEO of a men's underwear company called Wood Underwear, which is even better. Her name is Teresa Zimmerman. She's from the West Coast. And the reason why it's called Wood Underwear, she's wood fibers, because it's supposed to be softer fibers, right? Teresa and I co-authored a book after I flew back from New York and was sitting next to a guy. And I always put my earbuds in when I fly because I don't want to be bothered. And this guy wouldn't stop talking to me. He just kept like, can I sit here? Can I move this? Can I do? And I was like, yes. I kept talking, like, stop talking to me. Well, then it was just, he asked me a question. I had to answer it. Next thing I know, we talked the whole way from New York to RDU, and he asked me out. And I was like, oh, so this is the thing, right? So, okay, LinkedIn, we did the thing. And I was having drinks with Teresa, and I said, and he was much younger than me. And I said, I don't know if this is a date. Like, I'm not sure what's happening here. And she said, girl, you should hear my dating stories. And I said, well, I guess I'll have one in about a week, since I went back up and we ended up going out and it was a date and the whole thing. She said, we should write a book. And she was joking. And I said, girl, seriously, we should write a book. I think I have chapters. She said, oh, I've written all my stuff down. And so after that, we met probably 2 or 3 weeks later, we swapped stories, and we wrote a dating book called Oh Lords, that is an archetype of different types of men that we have encountered over time. We tell our dating stories under each archetype, like Lord Layaway, Lord FOMO, right? Lord my guy, your guy, not my guy. We tell our dating stories. We have a great girl out of Chicago who is a fashion illustrator. She did all our illustrations for us. So this book is fun. It'll be for girlfriends, most likely, small book clubs, and that'll come out in June. And then at the end of the year, my personal book called Out of the Crucible will come out at the end of the year. And it's a little bit more in line with what you heard me talking about today. Lessons learned, my personal story. Thanks for asking, Lisa. So very different, right? A dating
Yeah.
book and a memoir type self-help.
It's all life.
Girl, is it? It is all life. It is all life. You might as well have fun with it. The dating book was super fun to write. We had a ball.
That's
It
awesome.
also brought up a lot. I felt like I was in counseling.
It's a group therapy by way of purging via words.
By way of purge, yeah, very cathartic for
Yeah.
sure.
Awesome. Well, Jess, thank you so much for your time today. Everyone who joined in, hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure there's nuggets everyone's going to want to go back and enjoy. So I'm going to grab this video. We will put it on the RPRS YouTube, and it'll also be behind the member access on the blog, on the website. So look for that to come shortly. But an ask, if anyone has any topics they want to, see events on this year, or if you have a desire to speak yourself, or if you have a colleague that wants to visit us, I'd love those referrals. So feel free to reach out to me one-on-one. But otherwise, Jess, if you want to toss back host to me, I'll stay on for a few minutes while everybody wraps up. And
I love it.
Well,
Don't hang up yet. I want to get a picture.
oh, perfect.
Let's see if I can do this. My girl in Atlanta does my social media. She's always telling me to do these things. And okay, wait. Oh, wait. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Boom. Okay. I think I got it. Oh, yeah. Let's see if I can get in close. There. That's cute. Cute. Okay. I'm going to send it back. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you giving me the time today and for the invitation. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks,
right.
y'all. Have a great week.
Bye.
See you soon.